Good morning. It's Friday again, so it's time for Solidarity Live. This is a really special week because we get to do this twice. We did it on Monday, and now we're doing it on Friday, and it's a great week for that because a lot has happened. Jocelyn, how are you?
It's a triple special week because we got to see each other in person at a rally, which is the first time we've done that since, well, I guess there was definitely stuff last year, but it was all very sad and tragic. It was much more of a, don't kill us and or Supreme Court is getting heisted. So less fun rallies last year, I have to be honest. But this one was great. It was filled with joy and people we love.
I agree. And it was the thing that we always talk about when you're standing next to your people, demanding the change that you want. The power is really obvious. It was very palpable. It was also really fun to watch Bernie Sanders, Chuy Garcia were both there. Chuy spoke bilingually, but Bernie Sanders had the real-time translation into Spanish, which was awesome. Actually, the translator, I think, was like a superhuman or something because he was up there the whole time and it was hot. But watching Bernie's words translated and the whole Bernie thing, because the translator tried to do it, and he'd be like, the billionaires and that stuff. And I'm just going to say it. Some of the stuff for Bernie's words some of them sounded better from the translator than I cheered louder in the Spanish version than the English one. But it was.
Sacrilege? Are we allowed to say that someone's more Bernie than Bernie is?
I don't know. I mean, it just sounded really good. It was like, yeah, that's powerful. So I think so. I think it's fine. But yes, I'm in full agreement with you. It was lovely. It was a really powerful rally, and it was super well timed because the White House had just announced this BS so-called bipartisan plan, which is just a Republican wish list of looting public assets. And this, you had Chuy and Bernie, and then a huge contingent of grassroots who were just saying, absolutely not. If you think that just this can pass, you've got another thing coming.
Yeah, and that segues into our guest here to talk about all of this is my best frenemy, Maia Rosenberg. She is a very lovely, very young, extremely young woman and a wonderful organizer with DSA and a lot of organizations. I mean, how many organizations do you organize with, Maia? I feel like the list is like 30.
It's really just right now I'm organizing with DSA and the Campaign for New York Health. So just two.
So two whole organizations and ours, which counts. How are you?
Well, I am just fine. I am enjoying the cooler temperatures for the time being. And also I am exhausted.
I'm sorry. I did not mean to make you feel insulted. So, okay, so what is going on with the New York Health Act? I heard a rumor you did not win everything you wanted.
No, of course not. What would be the fun in winning without even more of a fight? The session ended just a couple weeks ago. What is exciting is that for the first time ever, we had majority support in both the Assembly and the Senate. Which makes it extra frustrating that both leaders refused to bring it to a floor vote. Mm-hmm. It did manage to pass the Assembly Health Committee, which was really great. It was originally put on the agenda for the Senate Health Committee, but our gal, Andrea Stewart-Cousins, decided to take it off. God forbid there be obvious rifts in the Democratic Party. So this, it's a bit of a good thing, good things and bad things. We ended up the session with this amazing direct action. We did a die-in at the Capitol. So, like, hundreds of people showed up. from all various things. And the thing that cracked up the most was one of the organizers had said, you should, everyone who is elderly, anyone with disabilities, anyone who is affected in any way by our current healthcare system, to the front. And one of the other organizers turned to me and was like, so isn't that everyone? Like, yeah. That's all the people? Yes, that's all the people. Everyone to the front. Which just means we have such a large, that's why there's so much support behind it, because it really does affect all possible constituencies of people. So that's sort of where we've been. And now we're doing a bit of a regroup, but we're in a really great place for the upcoming year, and we're looking forward to building on that momentum.
So, first of all, I'll say, unfortunately, you're quite glitchy. So I hope that your internet gets better, or at least holds out. And we don't lose you. But this bottling up the bill in leadership, with leadership not allowing the bill to proceed. We've seen that in California as well. This is sort of a tactic that, it's actually for everything. First, if you try to bottle it up in committee, if you can't bottle it up in committee, then you bottle it up somewhere else. So the accomplishment of getting it out of committee is really big, because it shows that you can build enough consensus in the committee with jurisdiction to move it forward. But what do you think is, so I'll just say what I think. Industry knows exactly where to put money. Like, they make sure that there are kinks in the system where you can bottleneck things, and that's where they put all of their resources, and they build, redundancies. So if they lose in a committee, then they can count on leadership. What do you think, building on this, as you said, what is the step that we can take to overcome that sort of tactic that is sort of obvious, and we know it's coming at us? We have this huge popular support, but when you go through the actual esoteric legislative process, industry still has a stranglehold on these choke points. How can we break that?
I think one area we need to focus on is continuing to build union support. We've struggled with getting support from major unions because the labor movement in general struggles, and what they view as their biggest bargaining chip is healthcare. And so, it's understandable why they would fight against this. But the argument is, like, there's a bigger picture here, and we need to get them on board. And to be fair, it's leadership. It's not, for the most part, rank and file members. So that's one. The other is, there are other avenues to push it through if we can't get it through committee. And potentially one thing to explore, there has been historical precedent, if something can't get through committee, is to create a working group. So that's one potential option as well. But the other thing is, we have really amazing support in the form of the DSA electeds and other progressives who were recently elected to the New York State Legislature, who are making this their top priority issue. And while they are certainly, there's only a handful of them, they're very loud, and they are organizers. They are the kind of people that are using their office to organize their constituencies. And that, that's kind of like this amazing thing, this amazing resource that we have, that we can definitely leverage to continue to build not just community support, but prove that the support exists in the legislature, and make sure that this gets moved to a real vote, because that's what they need. That's what the leaders say they want to see, so we can show them.
Well, and I mean, it's a ubiquitous issue. I don't really understand how healthcare I mean, healthcare and climate really should be everybody's almost primary focus, because they're both so existential for all of us. It doesn't matter if you're currently healthy. If we live in a system where one minor medical issue can result in bankruptcy, that's not a system that's functioning for anybody. I mean, it's just crazy. And I mean, Maya, feel free to say no. Do you want to share about your process with this or no?
Sure. You're asking me to do my little healthcare storytelling?
No, I was not pushing you to engage in emotional labor. Nope. I was just saying, if you have any anecdotes that you might want to share, you can.
Yeah, with that, I will also note that your internet fixed itself.
Yeah, I know.
Wonderful.
Amazing.
And we might have to return a little bit to some of the stuff that you said at the setup, just because there was a lot of glitch. Right. For some of our people. So just want to note that as you go into what I think Jocelyn was too afraid to ask you to say.
She scares me.
your story of me, or what is it that drives you on this?
Yeah. First of all, I don't know why I'm so scary. Look at this face. I'm adorable.
You're young and terrifying.
Secondly, so I'm somebody with chronic illness. I've had severe asthma for years. Last year I was in the hospital pretty much every month. And then I got COVID. So I was in the hospital again for extra time. And I am turning 26 in less than a year. And the thought of this is totally terrifying to me, because right now I have to go to specialists often enough. I have to go to the hospital often enough that even though I'm under still my dad's health insurance, which is considered by our current standards good, I still have so much debt, like to the point where I'm not even sure how much debt I actually have. And I definitely can't pay any of it. So every time I get a bill, I just sort of am like, where's the recycling? Oh, look, there it is. Drop it in. Because I don't own anything and I don't have credit cards. So like, what are they going to do to me? So, like there's no, right now, at least there's no consequences. But there will be down the road. For now, I get to live in this sort of blissful state of like, well, I just won't pay that, and hopefully nothing will happen in the recent future, or soon to be recent future. I'm not sure that works. So for me, passing the New York Health Act and Medicare for All are things that are absolutely crucial to my ability to continue to live. I need many medications that without health insurance are quite expensive. For example, my mom, who recently moved states and is on Medicaid, wasn't able to switch things over fast enough, and she needed her inhaler. And it was going to cost her like $450 for this inhaler that she needs to take daily. And it's like, well, you either pay the $450 now, which is quite a lot for the inhaler, or you get to wait and end up in the ER and end up having to pay a much greater bill. And there's really just no winning. So for someone like her, too, this is really important.
What a garbage system we have.
Yeah.
The system is not about healthcare. I mean, you can see in this, it's not about keeping you healthy. It's not even about like, it's obviously not about creating some sort of efficiency system-wide where you're trying to keep costs down, because we know the way to do that, for example, would be to make sure you and your mother and everyone who needs them had the albuterol or whatever inhaler for free forever, because it's way cheaper to actually give people the medicine that they need and keep them healthy than dealing with emergencies in the ER. It's like absolutely boggling, except it's not, because it's not a healthcare system. What we have is a system that sees you as a profit center, that sees me as a profit center for big pharmaceutical companies, for big hospital, and for big insurance. In fact, big insurance is the small fry of those three, still sociopathic and evil. But big pharma and big hospital are enormous. So, for example, with asthma, I mean, we know we could produce the most common inhaled steroids. The government could produce that very easily, public manufacturing. We do that stuff all the time for things that kill people, right? Like anything that killed the most technologically advanced things that kill people everywhere in the world, our government produced that. The US government contracted with someone and was like, build this thing that can kill that person across the world. It's super easy for the government to be like, build this thing which keeps all of our people healthy. We just choose not to do that. That kind of systemic change or structural change is the only path that actually makes any sort of like sense. We take on big pharma, we take on big hospital, and we take on big insurance, and we don't try to catch people in a trap, which is what's been laid for you. You're a consequence of your health. It's rolling dice, right? It's a luck thing. But now they've got some hooks in you, right? Like you say, you're hoping that there are no consequences, and out there somewhere in Buffalo, New York, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, where the debt collectors they're selling people's files around, and then people are going to try to collect on this debt. That's like a deeply dark, seedy part of America. Which is these corporations actually monetize catching people. They don't collect the debt. They sell it to shady like LLCs that actually do illegal stuff. Medical debt, for example, has a special categorization to try to not let this happen, right? They say we can forgive medical debt. It shouldn't stay around with you. That was a hard fight to get done, right? What they really want is the situation to make it into student debt so that it's the same thing, so that you can't get rid of it, so that it follows you forever, and they can just squeeze every nickel that you ever earn out of you. What kind of system is that? And I'll answer it, and then I just want to let you rail against it as well. But it's a sociopathic, plutocratic system where the very few, very wealthy people literally make all of their money extracting the wealth out of the people. They put their hands in our pockets and steal our monies, and they put their hands somehow into our health and steal our health. And they're not even afraid of killing us as long as they get their lucre, as long as they get their billions that they'll never be able to spend. And then I guess to finish my rant, what is the end game of these people is to go to Mars. Can we just focus on how stupid that is? They'll kill, they'll maim, they'll destroy the whole planet in a quest for one dude to launch himself to Mars, and then what? Be like, I win? Bad system we got going on here. I can think of many better systems. How about you, Maya?
Yeah, I know. Like, if only it was as profitable to keep people healthy as it was to kill them. Whoa. Yeah, if only I had like $1 for every time I've gotten a call from a collections agency, like I could probably pay off the debt that I owe them. Yeah, it's the concept of hospitals suing patients, like you tell other people in other countries that this is a thing that happens, and they're like, what the actual fuck? Like, well, what are you people doing over there? Or is the goal to have a smaller population, perhaps? Like, is there some secret conspiracy where they're like, ooh, maybe what we really want is to like secretly kill off all the poor people, which, you know, based off our current policies, isn't hard to believe.
Except it's not secretly, right?
It's not even secret.
It's profitably. So it's like there is no conspiracy. If you calculate our GDP, there's a bunch of digits in there. for killing people, right? They're like, oh yeah, well, if we fix the system, it's going to have negative macroeconomic impacts on this. You know, they always say that, and we're like, look at the positive impacts of people not dying and being sick and able to do their lives in a way that is not just being nickel and dimed by these corporations. And obviously the economic impact is way bigger. It's just, unfortunately, it's for everyone. And they really like it when it's only for them, so that they can go to Burning Man or buy another golden yacht or whatever it is that they like to do. I cut you off to go on yet another diatribe against them, but it pisses me off, Maya.
As it should. I think one of the things that I run into frequently is everyone's like so angry all the time, and they're so mad, and they're just like yelling, and like we need to fix this because, as you said, like the system is so bad and it only serves like 4 people. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, I'm going into these organizing meetings, and they're like, wait a minute, why aren't you yelling? Why are you just like sort of sitting there quietly? I'm like, well, here's the thing. I want to win. And the way to win isn't by, not that we can't go on rants, but like the way to win isn't by letting your emotions run wild. The way to win is like stay logical and methodically break down their defenses.
Because it doesn't, I mean, at a certain point, like it's not as though this is the system everywhere. This is a uniquely form of state-sanctioned murder. I mean, in every other basically industrialized country, it is not acceptable to kill people for profit. Which it doesn't even mean they don't have evil rich people. We can do the evil rich people thing. But I mean, you know, you're right, Maya. It's why we have to be organized, because there are solutions. This isn't like we're shouting into the void. There are actual things we can do, and we're not going to do them if we're all in a state of upset and infighting all the time.
That's what they want. They want us to be in a state of upset and infighting all the time, because then we're much less productive. And you're right. It is no less than murder. If there is a solution, if somebody is dying because they couldn't afford their diabetes medication, or somebody is dying because they felt like they couldn't afford to go to the doctor, that is murder.
Yeah, especially if you know that 30,000 people are dying a year because of it, right? Like we can, and you know that the system kills people, then you have to, and that we can change the system. So let's go into a little bit. What do you think? So for Medicare for All, to me, the most likely path to get us there quickest is a state-based path, because Biden, you know, made his bones on the campaign trail saying, I will not do Medicare for All. I think he means that he's not going to do Medicare for All. But what we have to push is things that shorten the path to Medicare for All at the federal level, and also the changes that will make it easier for the states to get to Medicare for All. And I think New York is close. I think a change in Albany would be really important to get closer. I think California is very close. I think that actually governor down, you have powerful. I think the political setup is very good there. Washington and Oregon as well. Oregon possibly a little bit better or a little bit faster, but Washington state as well. And then you have the whole West Coast. So it's what do you think about the state that play, having it happen in the states and then building it out to cover all 50? The Saskatchewan model. That's how Canada did it.
Exactly. There's historical precedent. So we know this is how Canada made it happen. This is how the ACA ended up coming to fruition. There are solid reasons to believe that this is the best strategy. And I think there's a lot of organizations and groups that are like really on board the Medicare for All train. And what we need to do is get them oriented to the state single payer strategy, because it's like one of those cliche, like, oh, if New York does it, then like everyone will do it. And that's kind of true. Like if New York can do it, if California can do it, we're in such a good position to move it through all 50. Of course, like in New York, like you said, like California has the type of leadership that will support it. New York, we're fighting against Cuomo, sexual harasser in chief / all around shithead.
Oh, before Brad yells at us, we try not to swear too much for our podcast. He'll just bleep you out, but then he'll send us a note because it takes more of his time.
All right, poopy head.
Yes, perfect.
Poopy head. I'm sorry for the demerits. Yeah, so we've got to fight against that. It's really amazing how quickly the accusations against him died down. But I think there's reason to believe that for so long in Albany, the reason stuff wasn't moving was because leadership was like, well, I have to capitulate to Cuomo because if he does, he will punish us in some way. And it does seem like while there's definitely no chance of him getting impeached, not that there really ever was, but there was a moment for like 4 seconds.
I thought he was going to. I mean, but I don't live in New York, so my New York friends were like, oh, you young person. And I'm like, wait, but he's got 2 scandals, like, right? The harassment, which is like multiple. And then over here, he did some of the worst stuff possible that led to thousands of seniors dying in nursing homes, including a legislator's family. And then, importantly, he actually passed a bunch of rules to protect these private equity-owned nursing home death traps that caused this carnage. I thought for sure that the 2 together was going to mean that he got. I mean, he did get dinged. I think that's what you were saying. He got dinged. I thought he was gonna. I didn't think he could withstand that.
The guy's really great at PR is really what I have to say. He knows how to spin. He's got a brother who's well positioned to help him spin it.
That's always helpful.
always handy, you know, reach in your back pocket for your like famous newscaster bro. I wasn't really particularly hopeful. What I was mad about was that when the accusations of sexual harassment came in, everyone was suddenly like, oh yeah, no, he's terrible because he got me too'd. And I was like, wait, yes, that's bad. But like he's been bad for a really long time, and you people have all been uplifting him because he's able to string 4 words together. So he sounds very intelligent and like he's capable next to a president who was telling everyone to drink bleach.
Okay, but like I think it's slightly worse than that. I think he really played into the authoritarian male leader thing that America loves so much, and like, you know, like, is it folksy if you're an Italian from New York? But you know what I mean? Like that, like, dude thing, like, yeah, I'm like a man and I'm figuring this out. And like, I don't know, it's kind of gross when you think about it, really. That just by virtue of being able to telegraph to the normal guy thing, suddenly somebody's brilliant and a genius and we're just going to ignore everything else that's happened.
You know, in his Twitter bio, speaking of like being folksy, it's like father, fisherman, motorcycle enthusiast. And I'm just like, I can't hate you anymore. There were so many things, and then you added that, and now it's just like...
You don't like motorcycles, Maya? Why not?
I've got nothing against motorcycles. I have something against him riding them, though, or publicizing. I don't know. It's just all so terrible and awful. But yeah, it was like, you don't just hate him because like he got me too. Hate him because like he's got a history of continually making bad policy choices, of continually serving wealthy New Yorkers over working class New Yorkers. Of continually like doing some shady shit that is maybe technically legal, but only, you know, for no particular good reason. Yeah.
I just said that's 3 demerits because you swore again, but that's okay.
Oh,
it's like
what I didn't even
know.
Don't say it again, Maya. Stop demeriting yourself.
It's hard. It's hard for me too. It's I have gotten better at it, so don't feel bad. Brad will just send you the demerits.
Right.
You can put them in the recycling bin next to the medical bills that don't make sense either.
No, I might be proud of these particular ones. I might print them out and frame them.
It's also a way to go. So I've worked pretty closely with the New York single payer movement for a long time, especially with the nurses there with NISNA, but with the whole movement as well. And I work closely with the California, most of the state-based ones. And you sort of alluded to it. A thing, I've actually, I pushed for 676 with John Conyers back in the day. I've been through all of them. I was in the room rewriting what is Pramila's bill. I pushed Bernie Sanders to add long-term care to his, right? I'm right in there. And I've also been whatever the activist version of canceled is multiple times in the single payer space because I like winning and strategy and not just winning, I like winning the thing, not just some internet points or previously. So I'm alluding to some of the stuff on Twitter, but that's not new. That's actually always been there. There's always been this thing that unfortunately in the single payer space, it was anti-strategic, right? It was oh, we have to push for this thing that'll never happen. And if you deviate from it, you're the enemy too. And then there'd be yelling matches and stuff. But we've seen a massive transformation of the space over the last, I'd say, super fast since Bernie Sanders' first run for president. But even right before that, it was slowly changing. And we had done our part as Social Security Works because we've always just been look, we will fight for things that shorten the path to Medicare for all. So if we can't get it in one, that's not shocking. It's often you can't get it in one. So we want to lower the age. We want to add vision, hearing, dental. We want to allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices. These are things that we've long pushed. And the movement at first was not totally there. And I think a lot of it had to do with that the public option under Obama was literally set up to take the power out from the Medicare for All movement and say, no, that was never even on offer. It just started at the public option. And that was never really on offer. You can watch the PBS documentary, Obama's Deals, about how he dealt away the public option first thing and then pretended that it was possible for another year. So there's reasons for this sort of that mentality, but it's strategy. You have to be able to if-then statement your way to the bill being signed into law. And I think where we are right now is actually the majority, because the room has gotten bigger, and actually DSA changed the single payer space enormously. It used to be very, very old and very, very white. It was very old head hippie is what I often say. And then people yell at me over it. But I knew what I meant. You'd walk into the room and they're great people, the best people. They're my people. I love them. But patchouli would waft out, right? And I'd be like, oh man, what a bad thing that is. Luckily, I love y'all so much that we'll keep fighting. And then slowly, as this started changing, it got way younger, more diverse. And it was DSA and this new thing that was happening. And then I'd look out at the room as I'm speaking and I'm like, this is what we need. You've got older folks here, you got seniors, you got people on Medicare, and you've got younger people who are just this system that we have right now is garbage. And I could see this intergenerational solidarity. And that's what really makes me happy. We've got strategy, we've got people, right? It's now everyone is basically on board with the fact that under Biden, we're just going to try to win as much expansion as we can, and then try to take it in the states and win it in the states and then bring it back into federal. But the whole time we're going to be actually materially improving people's lives. So the idea of pragmatic solidarity, that we're not going to just be okay with, oh, we didn't win, but at least we were fighting the good fight. And you're like, yeah, but you could never win that fight. I want to fight the good fight that we can win. So let's take it to like the right now. Bipartisan deal was just announced yesterday. I think that's the biggest danger to all the good things that we want in the Democratic deal, which, you know, includes those expansions in Medicare negotiation and home and community-based services and all sorts of stuff. What do you see there? We've seen some good messaging from Nancy Pelosi and President Biden that they're not going to take the bipartisan deal unless the full reconciliation package goes through. But how concerned are you about this, Maya?
I think that the healthcare movement and the movement for Medicare for All is like risk healthcare edition. So where are you putting your little soldiers? Where are you know, how are you looking at the board? And part of me is like, yes, it matters a lot. And another part of me is like, what's going to happen is going to happen. And we're still going to keep doing the things. They haven't won. They've not yet taken over the board. We've still got our soldiers on there, and we're still collecting. We're still moving outwards. And it, you know, it doesn't, whatever, it's not over, I guess is what I'm saying. And I think, so Jocelyn said something earlier about like healthcare and environment stuff needs to be like the two top priorities for everyone. And from the DSA perspective in New York City, I think that it's very likely, so DSA has been a coalition partner in the fight for the single payer for some time, and it does well in the field arena, et cetera. Like we play an important role. Coming up to this next year, very, very rightly, the chapter is going to decide most likely to pick one priority. And the fight for us is going to be making sure that that priority is healthcare. But to Jocelyn's point, and I promise I'm going to connect these dots eventually, to Jocelyn's point.
All I'm hearing is that I made a good point. Continue.
Yeah, happy to jump on that. We need to start forming alliances with other groups and organizations and movements that have pretty direct tie-ins to healthcare, but maybe aren't making like the New York Health Act their main priority. Because if you're talking about environment, oh my God, like the connections there are endless. We've got a pipeline being fought against right now. Like, what do you think? How does that connect to healthcare? Air quality, for example, in my neighborhood is one of the worst in the city. And I wonder why I keep getting sick. Housing, of course that connects to healthcare. If you don't have good housing, you're going to get sick. So there's all these things that have really direct tie-ins. And so when we're talking about how we fight at a national level, we need to be talking about the intersections. And you notice I'm avoiding the word intersectionality because I actually hate it.
I didn't notice that, but now I'm going to use it a lot in what I say next. So continue.
the intersections of all of these different movements. And I really do believe that if we are, as a nation, picking a top priority, it should be healthcare. And so much is nested under that umbrella.
Well, I think when you're talking about intersectionality, which is, of course, a wonderful word that everyone should use 7 times in every sentence. Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, these are not battles that we need to fight separately. And I am very grateful to every part of the racial justice movement for, I think, highlighting that way better than white organizers do.
Yeah.
I can't remember which episode, but the Rev Yearwood's podcast, which you should all listen to because it's very good, and he does a podcast on climate, but they were talking about that, about how organizers of color are way better at understanding this that these aren't like separate little siloed off policy issues. They're things that affect everything else. I mean, who do you think is getting the brunt of climate change right now? Communities of color and poor communities. And this is why that, you know, and like as anyone who's been poor knows, it's like you were just saying, Maya, it's not like you have one problem. It's like, wow, once I get that housing problem fixed, it's good. It's like, no, you're dealing with housing insecurity, medical issues, are exposed to way more carcinogens. You know, it's so funny because I thought about this a lot. Like when I was poor, it's also the type of work you tend to do when you're working class and or poor. Like it's not, if you're doing knowledge work, it's very unlikely you're going to be around really dangerous chemicals all the time. But if you work in a factory or the service industry or literally any other form of low wage work, it's very likely you're going to be exposed to things that, one, are less environmentally pure, and two, are going to give you all sorts of medical issues you have to deal with. There are just a million things that are not as obvious to affluent white people, but are incredibly obvious to anybody who is in any kind of disenfranchised group.
I can't believe I haven't talked yet about like the connection between jobs and healthcare, because
please do.
Yes, there is the aspect of like if you are working certain kind of work, often blue collar or service industry work, you are at risk for other health issues that others aren't. But also like if your healthcare is tied to your job, this is very much a problem. It limits your choice. It keeps you stuck in something that you feel like you can't leave whether or not you like it. And if you lose your job, you end up in a really shitty situation. Oh, sorry, that's like
I just want you to know I'm going to use this cursing thing to be morally superior to you for a very long time. But continue.
It's actually shown, though, that people who curse are usually more intelligent. There was a study in there. Anyway.
How did you make this like a self-compliment? You don't get to self-congratulate after messing up on air.
Brad's just going to tag this episode explicit, and then we'll go from there. You were just saying something that I just want to add one thing in because of some of the work that we do with people. The biggest thing, though, like, oh man, our system is bad. What happens when you get sick and then you get too sick to work? And then you lose your job that provides the health care that you need because you're sick. That has to be the most asinine part of our system. And it's right there in there. You connect healthcare to employment, and you not only face job lock like you're talking about, but if you become sick or disabled or injured and you lose your job, you won't have health care anymore. You won't have insurance.
Yeah. So I'm actually applying for disability now. I know that right now I look healthy, but I'm not. And this is one of the things that I'm most concerned about because as I'm no longer a full-time employee, I would not qualify for healthcare benefits. So that does make me nervous, but also that was a brief bit about me, which I don't know, just because I like to talk about me. People like to talk about themselves. But I also want to talk about...
I don't like talking about myself.
Just because, I mean, that's not true. And anyone who looks at your Facebook would know it.
You know what? It was unnecessary to bring my Facebook into this, Maya. My Facebook is a beautiful part of the internet.
Okay, sure, honey. But because we're talking about jobs and healthcare, it's June, it's Pride. It turns out that the queer people are more likely to be gig workers. Oh, interesting. I wonder what that means for their healthcare. And also, queer people have specific health needs that others don't have. For example, men who have sex with men, more likely to have HIV. What are they going to do if they don't feel like they can get the preventative care? And also, So that, you know, if they lose their job, that becomes an extra issue. And during COVID, probably connected to the fact that they are more likely to be gig workers, one of the groups most likely to suffer job loss. And of course, if you're a queer person of color, even worse. So there, you know, the point here is to emphasize that, like, no matter what your demographic is, there is a specific tie-in for you into how this healthcare system specifically targets you to make your life worse. If you're a person of color, if you are a working class person, if you are a woman, if you are a shift worker, if you know, like, whatever your case.
I want to point something out, though, because I was thinking about this the other day. My best friend and I worked in the service industry for years, and we were talking the other day about, like, why I don't know if I feel fully comfortable around anyone who hasn't done working class work for a while, because there are certain things they don't get, and we were talking about why that might be, and I realized because when you're dealing with people who have only done knowledge work or only been in an upper middle class situation their whole life, they actually are very vulnerable to these problems too. They just don't know it. So they have a lot of really unfortunate arrogance about, like, oh, well, like, I make a good living, I'd be fine. It's like, yeah, you've got $200,000 just, like, lying under the couch in case you have some kind of, like, whereas people in working class work or who are very aware of how vulnerable they are in this system. And so it means they're way more intelligent about these issues than people who glibly assume that because they're in some form of professional work that pays them fine, that they're not, when, like, I'm sorry, nobody makes so much money where $100,000 is not a large amount of money.
Except for the plutocrats.
Well, right, true. But I mean, if you're in a basically middle class category.
If you rely on wages, if wages are the dominant factor in your wealth, then you're, first of all, you're not who's running the country, and you can make a lot of money on just wages, but if wages are what you rely on for your wealth, you're not a plutocrat, and you could slip and fall in the wrong place, and the system that you set up, you might get, we deliver amazing healthcare in this country to rich people. We have the best rich person healthcare system in the world. If you're rich here, man, does it work for you. But even rich people can slip and fall in the wrong place, and then they find themselves in the middle of not rich people healthcare. And then they can learn, as Jocelyn is pointing out, just how vulnerable everybody is. I want to actually, I'm going to hijack your question, Jocelyn. Sorry, to ask Maya to just about something you said, because we talk about it a lot. It does go along with what Jocelyn was saying. You keep talking about what is actually just solidarity, right? You just keep, you're talking about how when we all work together and we see each other as our comrades and allies, then we can't lose. And the plutocrats, the people who don't rely on wages are nothing, right? Like the Peter Thiels of the world. Peter Thiel put shares of PayPal into his Roth IRA account, valued them at $2,000 before it went public. Now they're worth $5 billion that he never has to pay income tax on. He doesn't even have to sell that. He'll just get a loan on that $5 billion asset and never pay taxes ever. Those are the plutocrats. Wages are nothing to them. But what they know is if they divide us up with vertical lines, if queer folks are over here, if working class folks are over here, if communities of color are over here, environmentalists, you're over there, whatever you care about, you're over here. As long as the lines are vertical, then there can be, so few of us in our little silos. But when the lines are horizontal, that's when it becomes really clear. There's like 1,400 of you above this line. As long as we draw it this way, as long as we have something akin to a class consciousness that sees, like, no, we're not all one step away from being a plutocrat who's going to go to Mars. Like, that's not the dream. And that's sort of you kept saying it, and I kept picturing that in my brain. Why do you think healthcare is the one to get people to see that most obviously?
I think you're talking about, like, oh, if you slip and fall in the wrong place, suddenly you realize how this system is harmful to you. I think we've had a major breakthrough, and it's hard to look at the bright side of COVID. But I think for many people, COVID was slipping and falling in the wrong place at the wrong time. I think of a conversation I once had with a friend who was saying, why is it like when something goes down in France, like they're all in the streets and everyone's on strike? And when something happens here, everyone's like, oh yeah, that's like not great. Okay, I'm gonna like go back to watching Netflix. And I think part of it is that you have to see the literal garbage piling up in the streets for it to feel like something to you. And like Jocelyn said, many people who are not working class, who are white, affluent people, have never had to see the literal garbage piling up in the street. And for COVID, that was the first time that they saw it. And now they are recognizing that they too are part of that group below the line. They are standing hand in hand with these people who they had previously only seen, to use your analogy. Oh my God, I was about to call you Brad. I know that's like Alex. They're reaching across.
Are you saying that all bearded white men look alike, Maya? Because I find that offensive.
Am I saying that? Maybe just like Alex and Brad are kind of the same name. I don't know. They're
Makes sense to me. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so they're able to reach across those vertical lines in a way that they hadn't been able to before, because they hadn't seen that as even a possibility. And now that we have that, and I actually think one of the other things that really helped people do that was the George Floyd protests that really erupted last summer, which they were able to do that in a different way. So we're able to see the intersection of how racial violence and the lack of racial justice in this country is affecting not just the people who experience it daily in a much more tangible way, but also everyone in this country. And so now that those walls are being taken down, those lines are being cut down, we now have so much energy to draw on, because healthcare is something that affects every single person, and that line is so much easier for people to see how it connects to themselves. If you're looking at the word cloud of like healthcare and then it's like, oh look, right there, me, healthcare. This is, I need it, or my cousin needs it, or my mother needs it, or my brother, or my child, and it was. I do really believe that, having had gone through a pandemic, the nursing homes being one example, people are able to see the garbage in a way that will bring us the energy that we need to finally get this passed in all 50 states.
Yeah, I feel hopeful, actually, which is not usually how I feel when I talk to Maya. So this is a nice change.
I'm quite surprised, yeah. I must have done something wrong.
Really? You don't want people to be hopeful about solidarity and organizing? Well, whatever. But I think that the state-guided plan is something that I don't think a lot of people know. So I'm really glad that you guys brought that up. Maya, how can people get involved?
In New York, if you go to the Campaign for New York Health website, or if you go to DSA's healthcare.socialists.nyc, you can find different ways to plug in. there's always meetings coming up just to learn some of the basics of what's going on. And you can also, I would suggest checking out the Twitter at NYH campaign or at NYCDSA_healthcare or health. I should know.
One of those.
It's definitely one of those. I made it, so.
Is there anything else you would like to say about how much I mean to you as a person or the beauty of our friendship or anything like that before you go?
Oh, hold on. I'm racking my brains here. Jocelyn has a face.
Thank you.
She's intelligent and beautiful in all of the ways.
Wait, what? Did you actually say nice things? Now I feel bad for trolling you.
Oh, sorry. This was.
I also think you're intelligent and beautiful. No, I'm like, nope. I love you. Bye, Maya. We'll talk later.
Maya, thanks so much for joining us on Solidarity Live.
Thank you. Bye.
So Jocelyn,
I'm
sounds
in a really
like
good mood now. We actually saw each other in person. That was actually very educational for me.
Yeah, so Maya just crushed the answer because you often ask questions and you're not in something like this. I'm not expecting an answer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm expecting like, oh, let's have the discussion. But I asked why healthcare is the one to help people see these splitting us up. And the answer is because we just went through a world reality changing pandemic. And I'm like, yeah, that makes perfect sense to me.
Well, and I mean, I do think too, people, and this isn't even necessarily bad, people are self-interested. And I think that, she's absolutely right. There is something about losing people that we love out of nowhere. There's something about not being able to work or having to work differently and having your kid at home to realize like, if you are, again, relatively affluent, doing fine, that's not going to insulate you from this level of structural violence. It's just not. Maybe a little bit, but not really.
And the only thing that does, Jocelyn, in our last 15 seconds is solidarity.
Do you want me to let you close off?
No, you do it.
Well, I really love all you guys, and I do think that getting involved in your local DSA chapter is never a bad idea. And it's just so lovely to be organizing in person. So I hope that you guys are taking full advantage of that opportunity as we enter into hotback summer, and we will see you next Friday.